Welcome to the Daily News Roundup for January 2nd, 2025, kicking off the new year with, well, the stories shaping our world. And we're going to start right here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a somber start to the year down in New Orleans. A horrific attack on Bourbon Street really cast a shadow over New Year's Eve celebrations.
Yeah, this wasn't just another news story. This was a direct hit on a city known for its vibrancy, for its resilience.
Yeah.
A man drove a truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street and left a scene of just unimaginable devastation.
Yeah, 15 lives were lost, many more were injured, and the ripple effects are being felt deeply, especially by the families trying to grapple with this sudden loss.
And we're hearing just gut-wrenching stories about the victims. People like Martin Tiger Betch, a former football star, remembered for his fighting spirit. His family is clinging to these memories, just trying to find strength in the face of, just immense grief.
And then there's Matthew Tenedorio, an audiovisual technician at the Superdome. His family's, really struggling to piece together what happened. They say he was shot. But the lack of information from authorities is just adding another layer of pain to their ordeal.
It's a stark reminder that behind the headlines, there are real people whose lives are shattered. And the search for answers, for some semblance of understanding, is only just beginning.
And adding to the complexity of this case, an Islamic State flag was found in the attacker's vehicle.
Oh, wow.
So this raises immediate concerns about a potential connection to terrorism. Investigators are working to determine if this was a lone wolf attack or part of something larger.
Right. And this incident also raises questions about security measures, especially in crowded public areas. Like, could more have been done to prevent an attack like this?
That's the question a lot of people are asking. There's already debate swirling around a 2017 memo that actually warned about pedestrian areas being vulnerable to vehicle attacks. So this tragedy is likely to fuel those discussions even more. It'll probably prompt a reassessment of security protocols and strategies all over the country.
Yeah, definitely. But amidst the grief, amidst the search for answers, there's also this sense of defiance, this determination to not let this act of terror define the spirit of New Orleans. It's a city that's weathered storms before, both literal and figurative. And there's this collective belief that it will find a way to heal and to rebuild.
Absolutely. And speaking of tragic events, there's another developing story out of Las Vegas that authorities think might be connected to the New Orleans attack.
This one involves a Tesla Cybertruck.
Huh.
It exploded outside the Trump International Hotel.
Yeah, and the truck was rented by Matthew Allen Livelsberger, an active-duty U.S. Special Forces soldier. So investigators are looking into the possibility that this explosion, which thankfully didn't result in any casualties, could be linked to what happened in New Orleans.
So it's early in the investigation, obviously, so we'll be keeping an eye on that one. Now, shifting gears to a story that's both heartbreaking and a reminder of just the delicate balance of nature.
Yeah, the orca known as Tahlequah, who you might remember captured the world's attention back in 2018 for carrying her dead calf for 17 days. Well, she has experienced another loss.
Just devastating.
It was her second calf, another female. Didn't survive.
It's a tragedy. And it really highlights the plight of the endangered southern resident killer whale population.
Exactly. These magnificent creatures are facing an uphill battle. Their primary food source, Chinook salmon, is in decline. And this is a complex issue. You've got habitat degradation, overfishing, climate change. All these factors are playing a role.
Tahlequah's story brought a lot of international attention to the challenges that these orcas face. Underscores the urgency of conservation efforts. It shows how interconnected we all are, our actions and the health of the planet. It's all linked.
It really is. Well, let's move from the natural world to the business arena for a moment. Apple, the tech giant, is making waves in China with a bit of a strategic move.
Discounts on iPhones.
Yeah.
That's rare, especially on newer models.
Yeah. They're offering discounts. The biggest price cut is 500 yuan, and that's on the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max.
Wow. That's a significant shift for Apple, especially in the Chinese market, which has gotten so competitive. Local brands like Huawei have been gaining a lot of ground. They offer really feature-packed smartphones, but at lower prices.
Right. And Apple's decision to offer discounts suggests they're feeling the pressure. It could also reflect that Chinese consumers are becoming more price-sensitive in the current economic climate.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out for Apple and what it means for the global smartphone market.
Absolutely. Up next, we're turning our attention to a tragic incident that shook a community in California.
Yeah, a small plane, a Van's RV-10, crashed right into a furniture factory in Fullerton, that's near Los Angeles, happened on New Year's Day.
2 fatalities, 18 injuries. Witnesses described a horrifying scene, a fairy explosion. It really shook the neighborhood.
Terrible.
And this is actually the second plane crash in that area in just 2 months.
Really?
Yeah. So it's raising concerns about potential safety issues in that airspace.
Okay, now let's shift our focus to some international news, starting with developments in Syria. The new Islamist-led government has introduced some pretty significant changes to the school curriculum, sparking a lot of debate.
Yeah, the revised curriculum has a distinct Islamic slant, alterations that really reflect the government's ideology. For instance, defending the nation has been replaced with defending Allah, and they've removed scientific concepts like evolution and the Big Bang Theory.
It's raising alarm bells for activists who worry this is a step towards, a less inclusive society, despite the government's promise of a national dialogue.
And the removal of references to pre-Islamic Syrian gods further fuels those concerns. Critics argue that this new curriculum could marginalize certain groups and stifle diverse voices within Syrian society.
It remains to be seen how these reforms will be implemented, what their long-term impact will be. Meanwhile, over in the Palestinian territories, the Palestinian Authority has taken a pretty controversial step. They suspended Al Jazeera's broadcasting in the West Bank,
Citing incitement and bias as the reasons, specifically pointing to Al Jazeera's coverage of the recent security crackdown on armed groups in Jenin. This all comes at a time when the PA is facing growing unpopularity, a lot of internal dissent.
And it's worth noting that Al Jazeera is already banned in Israel, so this latest restriction further limits their reach in the region. Some analysts suggest this move by the PA could be an attempt to reassert authority and maybe even, curry favor with the incoming Trump administration.
And the decision's drawn criticism from press freedom advocates who see it as an attempt to silence dissenting voices, control the narrative.
Now we turn our attention to a story out of the Netherlands that, delves into a dark chapter of history.
The Dutch government has published the names of 425,000 individuals who were investigated for collaborating with the Nazis during World War II.
Wow.
It's unprecedented, and it sparked a debate about transparency, accountability, and the ethical considerations of revealing information like this. It's crucial to emphasize these individuals were investigated, not necessarily found guilty.
Right.
Culture Minister Eppo Bruins has defended the decision, arguing that greater openness is essential, but critics are concerned about potential harm to reputations, to individuals and their families, especially since guilt hasn't been established in every case.
It raises these profound questions about how societies grapple with their past, how to balance historical reckoning with protecting individual rights, navigating those sensitivities surrounding a period that, continues to cast a long shadow. Let's take a break from the heavier news for a moment, shift to a story that showcases just the incredible resilience of the human spirit.
Yeah, an 8-year-old boy in Zimbabwe survived 5 days alone in a game park. And this park is teeming with dangerous wildlife, lions, elephants. It's amazing.
He wandered away from his family during a visit. Despite the dangers, he not only stayed alive, but he kept his wits about him.
He did. He used his knowledge of the wild, from growing up in that area to find food and water. He ate wild fruits, dug small wells to get to groundwater. Just amazing.
Wow. His resourcefulness, his courage. It's a testament to what humans can do, even in the face of extraordinary circumstances. And after a frantic search by park rangers in the local community, he was found safe and sound. It's a glimmer of hope, in a world that can often feel very disheartening.
Yeah, absolutely. But unfortunately, we have to shift back to some grim news coming out of Gaza. Israeli airstrikes have resulted in the deaths of over 40 Palestinians, including several civilians.
One of those strikes targeted what's designated as a humanitarian zone in Al-Mawasi. The attack killed the Hamas police chief and his deputy. But tragically, it also killed 3 young brothers.
The youngest was just 7 years old. Their father described discovering the bodies of his sons, amidst the rubble, just heartbreaking, a real testament to the human cost of this conflict.
Yeah. The Al-Mawasi area has been hit repeatedly, even though it's designated as a humanitarian zone, raises questions about the safety of civilians and, how effective these designations really are.
The Israeli Defense Forces say they were targeting a Hamas operative. But the fact that civilians, including children, were killed has led to a lot of outrage, condemnation from human rights organizations. And it highlights the deteriorating situation in Gaza, especially with those recent weather events, flooding those makeshift camps. Many families are struggling to survive.
We'll be right back.
Turning our attention over to Montenegro, a really horrific act of violence has left that nation reeling.
Yeah, a mass shooting on New Year's Day took the lives of 12 people, including 2 children. The gunman, Ako Martinovic, 45 years old, opened fire in several locations after what started as an altercation at a restaurant.
Yeah, among the victims were the restaurant owner and his children. Just a stark reminder of, how indiscriminate these tragedies can be. This has really shaken the nation to its core. 3 days of national mourning have been declared, and there are serious discussions happening right now about gun control.
In the wake of this tragedy, the government's considering a ban on weapons, which, reflects just how urgent the need is to address gun violence.
Hmm.
Turning our attention now to India, where a long-awaited step is being taken to address the legacy of a truly horrific industrial disaster.
It's been 4 decades since the Bhopal gas leak, and authorities have finally started removing hundreds of tons of toxic waste from that abandoned Union Carbide factory.
This is big for the survivors and their families. They've been living with the consequences of this disaster for generations. But this cleanup, it's not without its own set of challenges and concerns, right?
That's right. Activists are worried about pollution at the new disposal site. It highlights the long-term challenges of dealing with hazardous waste, and of course, it underscores the need for accountability. The ongoing fight for justice for the victims of Bhopal.
Turning our attention now to Australia, we've got kind of a unique story. This one's about the balance between wildlife conservation and public safety.
Australia is dealing with a booming saltwater crocodile population. They were once hunted almost to extinction. But these apex predators, they've made a remarkable comeback, which means they're having more encounters with humans.
And of course, this has sparked debate about how to manage this growing population.
Right. You've got Ranger Kelly Ewan. She works tirelessly capturing and relocating crocodiles that pose a threat. And then you have educational programs like Be Crocwise, trying to teach people how to coexist with these creatures.
But there's also this movement to increase culling, which is controversial to say the least. Raises ethical questions about human intervention in nature.
For sure. And Australia also has a pretty lucrative crocodile farming industry. They supply skins to luxury brands, Louis Vuitton, Hermes. So it's a complicated issue.
Now let's zoom in on the electric vehicle market. One major player is experiencing a bit of a slowdown.
For the first time in over a decade, Tesla has reported a decline in sales. A few things are happening. Demand is softening, borrowing costs are going up, there's more competition from rivals.
This shift in the EV landscape is particularly notable because, Chinese automakers like BYD, they're gaining momentum. BYD's on track to overtake Tesla as the world's top EV seller. A lot of that's due to strong sales in their home market.
Right, and they've got a really aggressive global expansion strategy.
Adding to the challenges facing the EV industry, Swedish battery maker Northvolt, they were once considered a green tech pioneer. They filed for bankruptcy in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a setback. It shows just how volatile this market is
Yep.
and how intense the competition is, especially from Chinese battery makers.
Now, let's take a bit of a cultural deep dive. This one's about a fascinating tradition in Nigeria.
We're looking at the Igbo society and their unique leopard slayer tradition. Centuries old. It once involved, actual leopard hunts.
Right, but it's evolved over time.
Now, to become a leopard slayer, you show your success not through hunting, but through financial contributions to the community.
Interesting.
The ceremony itself, it's got 3 stages, lots of rituals, symbolism. It's all about community engagement. This adaptation of a traditional practice, it reflects a bigger trend, I think. Cultural evolution, balancing heritage with modern values. In this case, wildlife conservation.
Back in the Gaza Strip, we're focusing on the human cost of the conflict there, the efforts to reunite families that have been separated by the violence.
There's a story about the Masri family. They lost several members in an Israeli bombing. And the grandmother, she went on this incredible journey to reunite with her 4 orphaned grandchildren.
Organizations like UNICEF and the ICRC, they're working hard to make these reunifications happen. It's a difficult task, navigating an active war zone. But the emotional scars of conflict, they run deep. These children face a long road to healing, Finally, we're heading to Los Angeles, a city known for its car-centric culture. But they're embarking on a pretty bold plan to change their transportation landscape.
Yeah, LA's trying to embrace cycling ahead of the 2028 Olympics. They've got this massive expansion of bike lanes planned.
Ambitious project. It's called 28 by 28, and it's facing some pushback from residents who worry it's going to make traffic worse.
Right, but those in favor, they say it's a necessary step to create a more sustainable city, a healthier city, a more people-friendly city.
This initiative reflects a global trend, I think, toward urban planning that prioritizes, alternative modes of transportation, less reliance on cars.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how LA manages this.
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking, a real commitment to changing, how people get around. Los Angeles is really trying to uh, reimagine their urban spaces, challenge that car culture. It'll be interesting to see what happens, what impact it has on, other cities thinking about doing something similar.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that even those, deeply ingrained habits, like even urban landscapes, they can evolve. It's about having a vision, I think, for a more sustainable future, more people-centered.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we've come to the end of our journey through today's top stories.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
We did, from those heart-wrenching tragedies in New Orleans and Montenegro to the incredible resilience of that young boy in Zimbabwe. It's been a real spectrum of human experiences today.
We touched on some pretty complex issues, too. The state of our planet, the global economy, conflict, and, reconciliation. A lot to take in.
It is. But I think staying informed, engaging with the world around us, it's crucial. By understanding these events, the things that shape them, we can have those meaningful conversations, advocate for change, maybe even find some hope in the midst of all the challenges.
And agree more.
Well, thank you for joining us today on this exploration of current events. We hope this roundup has given you some insights, maybe some new perspectives, maybe even sparked a few questions of your own.
Always good to keep asking questions.
The world is constantly changing. It's complex. Staying curious, seeking out different perspectives, engaging in thoughtful dialogue. These are all, essential steps, especially as we navigate, these times.
Well said.
Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay connected.